We're talking about this valspar paint color that was recently elected as their color of the year for 2024. Valspar isn't a paint company we talk about very often, but more and more people seem to be wanting me to talk about it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to talk about Renew Blue, their color of the year, go into some details about it, and most importantly, I'm going to give you some color pairings for it, and I'm also going to tell you what to paint your trim with it. You got to paint those baseboards, okay? Can't skip out on that. So if that sounds good to you, press that like button and let's get right into this color review. I'm James the Color Guy. Welcome to Color Quickie. So if you're already a subscriber of this channel, or better yet, a Patreon member, you know that the color of the year for a number of different paint companies is blue, some variation of it. And Renew Blue by Valspar is an interesting one because at first glance it looks like a little bit of a sky blue, but when you look a little closer, it has this very subtle warmth to it, this little bit of a green undertone, and it just elevates it to a really interesting level. It's also a little bit darker than you might expect. Its LRV, or its light reflectance value, is 43, and that tells us that it reflects nearly half, or 43%, of the light that hits it. So just to compare it with maybe a white paint color, which could be 90, 92, 93, this one's at 43, so quite a bit deeper, kind of on the darker mid-tone side of things. And this means that as a paint color, it's pretty saturated and it's far from an off-white or a neutral that will just kind of blend into the background. This is a color that is meant to be featured, and I think that's what they were going with when they selected it. Normally, I would say blues like this would work great in bathrooms and bedrooms, maybe a living room or a family room if you really like blue. But I feel paint companies are starting to challenge us to use these colors, these more saturated hues, in other areas of our homes, in kitchens, in hallways even, in living areas, just so we can start embracing color and challenging ourselves to push the boundaries a bit. I still think that this is a color better used in secondary spaces or in kind of semi-accent form on things like furniture and stuff like that, but I mean, to each their own. If you were to use this paint color in a room, let's say, in your home, in some form or fashion, what trim colors would go really well with it? Well, the first one I would recommend is a lighter option, and it's called Swiss Coffee. This color name is all over the place with different paint companies, but this version of Swiss Coffee, I feel, has a very soft warmth to it. It is quite bright with an 86-ish LRV, so that's quite a bit brighter than Renew Blue, so that'll give you some nice contrast in terms of depth, but also that little bit of warmth will help separate itself even more in a really, really nice way. But it's not too warm where it's going to feel overly buttery or creamy or yellow leaning. It's subtle, and I think it coordinates really well with the other colors in this palette. Now, a darker, maybe more avant-garde choice for trim, if you want something to sort of pop even more in a dramatic fashion, would be this color, Deep Water. So a lot darker. This is going to give you the other end of the spectrum where instead of having a nice, light, clean, bright white trim, you have something really dark and saturated. And this color is more on the teal side of things. So there's more of that green undertone coming through, even though it is still part of the blue family. But I think it's really on the cusp. Can go either way. Let's get into some color pairings for the rest of your home. So if you wanted a neutral paint color to sort of go with Renew Blue, I'd recommend Asiago, named after the cheese. And what's nice about this color is it feels like a darker version of Swiss Coffee to a certain degree. Has a little bit of warmth, but it's not overbearing. It's not overly yellowy or orange leaning. It just has a nice neutral soft feel that feels very balanced as a paint color and can really lean either way in a cooler palette with blues or a warmer palette. So let's say you're decorating a part of your home and you do have some spaces that use a lot of those warmer colors and you kind of gravitate towards that. This could be a good connecting color to bring in some of that blue with Renew Blue if you want to stay current, let's say. You don't have to stay current with these colors of the year, but if you like them, then great. The second color was one of the 2023 colors of the year, and yes, there were multiple last year. It's called Green Trellis, and this is more of a sage green, not unlike the shirt that I'm wearing right now, although a little bit darker. And what I like about it is it's just harkening back to the trends of last year. I'm a big believer that if something was really awesome last year, it shouldn't just all of a sudden be uncool this year. It was picked for a reason because it worked and it resonated with people. I still think green is great. And similar to Renew Blue, this is another color that is in those low 40s LRV wise, so quite a bit of depth. Best to use in areas that have a little more natural light, maybe to just enhance it a bit more. But in those darker parts of your home, it still can serve you well. Just make sure you test them out before you use them. And then my third color pairing is part of the red family, which is pretty complementary to green and blue. But this one is a very soft, neutral, muted red called Mauve Blush. And I almost equate this color to a rose gold or a terracotta, sort of dusty clay color, maybe a red-based tan. Any way you want to look at it, it is a nearly neutral. So not quite a neutral color like a tan or a beige or a brown. In my mind, it has a strong enough red undertone to sort of put it in a different category, but it's not going to feel too polarizing. It's not like a sun-dried tomato red or a tangerine orange. It has some softness to it, some dustiness, so it's gonna work nicely in those more muted, subtle, understated color palettes, which this one isn't. There is a decent amount of saturation, but there isn't anything too avant-garde or out of the box here. But I really like how all these colors fit together. It gives you a bunch of different feels so you can have a lot of variety in your home. And speaking of which, here's what the palette looks like all together, so please let me know what you think. We got more videos right over here, and also we have a Patreon if you want extra exclusive content every single Sunday. Thank you so much for supporting what we do.